Penguin Random House Audio presents The Genius Myth, a curious history of a dangerous idea, written and read for you by Helen Lewis.
Introduction. Greatness may be out of fashion, as is the transcendental, but it is hard to go on living without some hope of encountering the extraordinary. Harold Bloom in the book Genius. I apologize in advance. There is nowhere to start this book except with Elon Musk, perhaps the most overexposed man in human history. Someone who was not content with being known as a space pioneer who might get humanity to Mars, or as the innovator who made owning an electric car seem like an adventure rather than a penance. In other words, a genius. Musk could have died a hero, toasted by environmentalists, entrepreneurs, and kids who dream of becoming astronauts. Instead, he has lived long enough to become a villain, at least to liberals. After he took over Twitter and turned it into his personal megaphone, Musk spent the next few years demolishing the mythology he had attracted during his early career. The man who bragged about his work ethic, including tales of how he used to sleep in the office because he was so hardcore, could be seen by the whole world blasting out jokes, memes, and insults, day and night. He sent 100 posts a day on average during his first 2 weeks spearheading a government efficiency drive. Ironically, any consultant brought in to make Musk's own companies more efficient might reasonably have suggested that their chief executive focus harder on his actual job rather than procrastinating online. Once we began to see Musk's taste for conspiracy theories and cringeworthy memes, the headlines about him changed. The most obvious question used to be, what made Elon Musk such a genius? Now the question is this: is Elon Musk a genius at all, or just a lucky idiot? Online, you regularly see suggestions that he only became rich because he inherited an emerald mine. He didn't. Or that he took over Tesla, booted out its founders, and took the title for himself. He did. Perhaps, like the unbearable billionaire Miles Bron in the satirical film Glass Onion, all his previous successes were built on lies. None of these arguments is entirely fair, but you can see the appeal of them. They are attempts to reconcile the inarguable evidence of Musk's early triumphs with our newfound knowledge of the gullible, easily distracted, and emotionally dysregulated lover of lame jokes who posts from his X account. Of all the remarkable people I've met, Elon is probably the most likely to remain a world historical figure, despite his best efforts to become a clown, wrote his former friend Sam Harris in early 2025. He is also the most likely to squander his ample opportunities to live a happy life, ruin his reputation and most important relationships, and produce lasting harm across the globe. Harris conceded that he could not understand what had happened to the Musk he knew, to the extent he wondered if he ever knew Musk at all. For the right, however, there is no contradiction. They embrace Musk's belief that the federal government can be disrupted, that is, run like a Silicon Valley startup, with slashed funding, deliberately impossible deadlines, and a macho work ethic. They applaud his lack of concern for the potential consequences if he's wrong. This is risk-taking. This is innovation. As for toting around his toddler X in press conferences, or leaping around MAGA rally stages like a spawning salmon, he is a genius, and geniuses are allowed to be a little bit eccentric. Here is the Superman imagined by the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, unbound by rules, propriety, and perhaps even morality, utterly different from the passive, conformist herd of learned cattle that makes up the universities, the media, and the deep state. The Übermensch is a being of pure action, a man who makes things happen. This is undeniably a true description of Musk. To me, though, both approaches are flawed, and that's what this book is about. The argument over whether Elon Musk is a genius is really an argument about what our society values and what it is prepared to tolerate. A suite of behaviours that would otherwise be inexcusable are forgiven when they are the price of greatness. The right wants to exaggerate his achievements for their own political ends. The left wants to denigrate them for the same reason. The final outcome of the referendum on Musk, eccentric and extraordinary, or overhyped and overindulged, will also be a victory for the political tendency that promoted it. My own view of Musk is closest to that of his biographer Walter Isaacson, who has said that his subject is a genius when it comes to material properties, when it comes to engineering, but not a genius when it comes to human emotions. Personally, I would go further. Musk has qualities that made him perfectly suited for success in a particular time and place, the American tech scene in the early 21st century, an extreme tolerance for risk, a willingness to break the rules, and an ability to master technical knowledge quickly, among others. Would he have been a world-changing figure in 15th century Milan, or present-day Mali, or if he had been born among the Inca or Inuits? Probably not. You can just as easily imagine him being the kind of advisor who assured the king that his latest military innovation was ready to use, when it wasn't, and got his head cut off as a result. I'm happy to grant him acts of genius, but I'm wary of describing any person as a genius. That is, a member of a special and superior class of people. This is the genius myth, and it's what I want to demolish in this book. So am I sharpening my axe to destroy the concept of individual achievement altogether? Because we all hunger to experience the transcendent, the extraordinary, the inexplicable. And that is what geniuses offer us. Once you saw phoenixes, writes Ralph Waldo Emerson in his 1841 essay Uses of Great Men. They are gone. The world is not, therefore, disenchanted. Instead of animals that burst into flame, we have people who burn a little more brightly than those around them. The ancient Greeks had a word, deinos, that meant both wonderful and terrible, awe-inspiring in its original sense. The conservative philosopher Edmund Burke, writing around the time of the French Revolution, echoed this by creating a division between the sublime and the beautiful. Anyone could appreciate the easy beauty of a waterfall or a watercolour, but he felt that we needed another category, for objects or events that were productive of the strongest emotion which the mind is capable of feeling. Encountering genius can feel like that vertiginous falling away as you contemplate an artwork or an equation or a new concept and have no idea how it was created by a human brain. Haven't you felt it, looking at Van Gogh's Almond Blossom, or counting up the words Shakespeare gifted us, or listening to Mozart, or looking down at the earth from an airplane window, realizing that tons of metal and flesh are resting on nothing but air? How did the Wright brothers do it? How did they know to do it? I'm not such an iconoclast that I'm going to argue that talent doesn't matter. If you gave me 1,000 years and the best teachers in the world, I could still never paint like Monet or make a breakthrough in quantum physics. But something else is going on when an individual is anointed as a genius. For a start, that person is now assigned to a special category, somewhere between secular saint and superhero, and the reflected glow burnishes all their other achievements and opinions. This is particularly troublesome when so many geniuses have also done and said extremely dumb, hurtful, or discriminatory things. As an onlooker, bestowing the word turns a subjective assessment, I like this, into something that masquerades as objective fact, a natural phenomenon, an unavoidable, immutable truth. Oh, and one other thing. Since so many talented people are weird, genius becomes a licensing scheme for their eccentricities. Genius transmutes odd into special. This book focuses on the West, loosely defined, because this is where the double-edged concept of the individual genius was born. In Greek and Roman times, the word genius meant a visiting spirit. You weren't a genius, but one might speak through you. Socrates talked about the daimonion that guided him, a word that is the ancestor of our demon, but without the explicit connotation of evil. For Romans, inspiration might come from furor divinus, divine fury, or furor poeticus, possession by a poetic muse. They gave us the word genius, which means something between
Sample complete. Ready to continue?